Terrifying real footage of a group of men following a girl home.
Can't fucking open the damn door.
They took this picture. They noticed this one woman who was standing out. Her face was tilted in a most odd way, creeping everybody who saw it out. We all know that normal people do not take pictures like this at all. She almost looked possessed in this photo. But then people noticed, oh, somebody just edited out the picture and made it look that creepy. Well, here's the normal photo. Believe it or not, majority of the people who seen this photo still was creeped out by the normal looking photo, because if you look deeper into her eyes, if you just look deeper and deeper into her, she just still looks creepy.
Yeah, this is Sharon at Columbine High School. We have shots being fired. Okay. The guy is in a black trench coat. Jerry, there's that guy. They just shot somebody inside the cafeteria. I'm going to have to try and get out of here and call you back.
Got help on the way, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Stay in line with me.
Oh, God. Kids, just stay down. Under the tables, kids. Heads under the tables.
The video I'm about to show you is apparently a real-life possession caught on camera. Warning, it's fairly gruesome and creepy. The backstory is even creepier. So in 1973, a canister of 8mm film was found in an attic by a new homeowner. They decided to see what was on it, and it wasn't cute family home videos. The video was of someone documenting this guy's possession. In the attic, they also found a bunch of audio recordings of this guy's possession as well. What do you guys think? Is this real or fake? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, link in bio.
No, you goddamn piece of punk ass shit! Do not mess with that friggin' kid! If you do, I'll rip off your goddamn head and shove it so far up your friggin' ass, you'll be coughing up dandruff for 4 friggin' months!
Look, I don't care what you say. If you ever touch him again, I will freaking kill you. I'm gonna pull out a goddamn shotgun and blow your damn head off. Do you understand, you little worthless piece of crap?
To hear the full story of the Columbine Massacre, go listen to the podcast I co-host with my fiance, Murder in America. The link is in the bio of my TikTok. Listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. And thank you guys for all the support and love you've given us recently. It's amazing.
Picture a sunny day in June 1994. Nicole Brown Simpson, ex-wife of famed football player O.J. Simpson, is found brutally murdered alongside friend Ron Goldman. The ensuing trial becomes a media circus, captivating millions worldwide. Evidence? A bloody glove found at O.J.'s residence. But the glove doesn't fit. O.J.'s defense team capitalizes on this, crafting a narrative of police misconduct and racial bias. The verdict? Not guilty. Despite the evidence, O.J. walks free, acquitted of double murder charges. A tale of fame, crime, and courtroom drama. This is the story of the Nicole Brown Simpson murder case. A saga that continues to intrigue, even 3 decades later.
My own father turned me into a monster, and he did it as part of an obscure experiment at Area 51. I'm Abigail Wester, and you probably know about my case called the Abigail Project. My father, Albert, was a scientist who was commissioned to conduct experiments to create superhumans. After the Second World War, he was very enthusiastic and confident about his experiments, which is why he took me on as a guinea pig, his own daughter. I was afraid, even terrified, of having to carry out experiments. He started by giving me high doses of radiation to see how it would affect my body. My father remained serene, but I suffered enormously and begged him to stop. To no avail. My hair fell out, my skin wrinkled, and my face deformed to the point where I was turning into a beast. After only a few months of experimenting, I had to be locked up in a cage because all I did was scream and bang my head against the walls in agony. After After a year, I had lost my consciousness and moved only by instinct. My father, seeing the disastrous results of the experiment he'd conducted and the situation I was in because of him, decided to die because he knew he couldn't go back. He left me in the hands of his colleagues who did something horrible to me. Press the plus button for part 2.
Excuse me, can I help you? What are you doing? Excuse me, why are you at my door? What are you doing?
I'm not at your door.
Yes, you are. Why are you trying to go into my apartment? I'm going to call the police. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police. Get away from my door. Get away from my door. I'm calling the police. All right, I'm calling the police.
This is the Hello Kitty murder case, and it's one of the most gruesome true crime stories you may ever hear about. This happened in 1999, and Fan here was abducted by 3 men and a girl. Fan Man Yu was then held inside of a flat that one of the killers rented out for about a month. She was tortured and beaten, and they even tried to pimp her out. And apparently she was hung up and used as a punching bag. They even went as far as burning up her legs so that she couldn't even walk. She also had no real food to eat. They forced her to eat human feces. After that immense stress her body went through, she died after a little over a month being held captive there. This is where things get even crazier. They cut up her body, dismembered her completely, and then cooked up her head. They then stuffed her half-cooked head into a Hello Kitty mermaid doll. Investigators found this and found many insects inside of it as well. The rest of her dismembered body was discarded somewhere. The only pieces of evidence the investigators found was the skull inside of the Hello Kitty doll, some teeth on the ground, and organs in the freezer. Reading this story makes me just feel so horrible for Fan Man Yi and the torture she went through. This is definitely the worst true crime case I've ever read about, and then there are just so many more details I can't even say. Let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section below, and as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
This video is chilling because just 15 minutes after this little girl posted this TikTok, her life was senselessly taken. On February 17th, 2021, a 9-year-old girl named Felicia Konoshuk, who lived in the Russian city of Chita, posted a video to her TikTok claiming that her neighbor had been pounding on her door for over an hour. Here is the transcript of her TikToks. Pause to read. The incident started after Felicia's father left her and her brother alone to go to the store. Eventually, the neighbor stopped knocking, and Felicia chatted with her friend about the TikTok video that she'd posted, and her friend invited her to meet her at the park to take her mind off of things. 15 minutes after Felicia posted the video, she heard a soft knocking on the door, so she went to answer it, thinking it was her friend or her father. Before she could answer the door, the neighbor opened fire and took Felicia's life. Her father returned moments later to find her, and she took her last breath in his arms. The neighbor was 33-year-old Vasily Dunay, who had been getting increasingly more aggravated over the sound of some home repairs Felicia's father had been doing. He was also extremely drunk at the time. He pled guilty to the crime and was given a 17-year sentence to be served in a penal colony in Siberia. Vasily was fully aware that there were children in the home, so do you think 17 years is long enough for something that reckless?
This disgusting pedophile was captured after using PayPal to purchase CP and CSAM. This is 24-year-old Nicholas Brenshaw from Utah. So investigators started looking into Nicholas in the year 2013. And from December of 2013 to July of 2016, authorities found that Nicholas paid over $2,700 to illegal websites to purchase CP. And while authorities were investigating Nicholas and discovering his disturbing secrets, they found that he was chatting with 19-year-old Elijah Roberts, also from Utah. So Elijah and Nicholas would use apps like Kik and Wicker, I've never heard of Wicker, to exchange CP materials. They would also chat about their deep, disturbing desires to be alone with children. These chats were allegedly extremely graphic and extremely disturbing. So when pedophile Elijah Roberts was arrested in 2016, the authorities found out that he had also allegedly assaulted a 14-year-old boy. He was also found to have been offering this young boy to other men online, meaning he wanted people to come over and assault this boy too. Thankfully though, both of these freaks were sent to prison, but sadly Elijah was sentenced to only 60 months in prison. This is only 5 years. I think both of them deserve longer sentences, but what can I say? This is America. We prefer to punish drug users as opposed to pedophiles.
This is Two Girls, One Cup, one of the most disgusting shock videos on the internet explained. I'm explaining this off memory and other people's comments. There is no way I watch this video again because it's that gross. The video is 1 minute long, and as it starts, you hear a piano track over the video and you see two girls making out. But at around 10 seconds in, it gets absolutely sickening. One of the girls gets a glass cup and defecates in it, filling it all the way to the top. A jump cut then occurs and it shows the two women licking the feces in the cup like it's ice cream. It cuts again and it shows one of the girls rubbing the feces around her mouth, and the video then cuts again, and it shows the two girls making out with feces in their mouth and all over their faces. The next scene, one of the girls sticks her fingers down her throat trying to make herself vomit into the glass as the other girl licks it. The next scene, it shows one of the girls standing up and the other one is on her knees. The one standing up then pukes directly onto the face of the girl on her knees. The final scene shows both girls completely covered in feces as it's even overflowing their mouths. And this is where the video finally concludes. This video is absolutely sickening, and when I tell you not to watch it, don't watch it. I know I say that for all the videos I cover, but this one isn't brutal or gory. It's just plain out disgusting and you really just don't want to see it. You can watch reactions on YouTube of people watching this for the first time. Joe Rogan even has his reaction video up from years ago.
Sometimes true for stranger non-fiction. The case of Richard Trenton Chase is a story which even the most depraved horror writer would struggle to create. Over the course of 4 weeks spanning across 1977 and 1978, Richard Chase took the lives of 6 innocent victims in Sacramento, California. His murders gradually progressed in violence, beginning with drive-by shootings and culminating in acts of cannibalism.
This is Crush Your Enemies, one of the worst ISIS execution videos explained. Before I begin, this is a massive trigger warning. The video begins with the victim lying on the ground with his head placed against a rock. The camera then fixates on the victim's face as he waits for the brutality to happen to him. He was sweating extremely bad with the look of fear and sadness all over his face. 2 ISIS soldiers can be seen behind him trying to pick up a very large rock. It's extremely heavy and one of the men can't even lift it up. They then drop the rock on the victim's head and you hear this awful cracking noise that nobody should ever hear. And you then see an indent on the side of the victim's head. And it's very clear he immediately suffered traumatic brain damage. His eyes cross and his body goes completely stiff. Blood begins to leak from every place on his face. His nose, mouth, ears, everywhere. After a few seconds, the victim's entire head is covered in blood. He tries to breathe, but huge bubbly blood starts coming out of his mouth, and despite the music playing in the video, you still hear the victim choke and gargle on his own blood as he tries to breathe. Which honestly is one of the worst things ever. The victim then tries to lift his head, but he doesn't have the strength to do so. The camera remains focused on him as he withers around the ground and bleeds abundantly. And the video then concludes. This is by far one of the worst and most brutal ISIS videos out there, and I seriously beg you to never go searching for it. The level of brutality in this video is on another level, and it blows my mind that humans do this to each other. This is the Pitbull video, one of the hardest cartel execution videos to watch explained. The video that I'm about to explain is extremely graphic and I don't recommend searching for it. The video begins with the man lying on his back on the ground, and 2 men are holding his legs open. He's being restrained. And in total there is 5 perpetrators and 1 victim. And also 2 Pitbull dogs. Apparently this is the victim's punishment for allegedly doing something with a kid or to a kid. The victim is naked, and at the start of the video, the dog has done most of the work. The dog already ripped off the man's privates, and it's just a bloody mess. The dog continues to rip pieces of flesh off of where his privates used to be, and the victim is being held down and he is also gagged so he can't scream. But sometimes the gag came loose, and at this point you could hear the man scream in pain. The victim was even talking, but I couldn't translate it, but that means he was completely conscious during this. Which I can't even imagine the pain. As a man, this might be one of the worst videos out there. Funky Town is bad, Ghost Rider is bad, but as a man, I can't imagine anything more painful than a pit bull ripping off your junk while you're still alive. Not many people mention this video with the other disturbing ones, but it's definitely up there. There's not any information about the victim after the video. I don't know if he died, but it's safe to assume he did. He lost a lot of blood, and if a dog eats your privates, you will most likely get an infection and die from it. All in all, this video is very graphic, very real, and very disturbing. Please do yourself a favor and never go searching for this video, especially if you're a man. This girl was killed and had all of her teeth removed by a cartel member while on vacation in Mexico. The body of 23-year-old Lisbeth Flores was found dead in the Mexican town of Matamoros. The sad thing is, Lisbeth was a mother of 2 and was also visiting Mexico for vacation. On August 9th, 2023, Lisbeth told her mother that she would be crossing the border into Matamoros to visit her boyfriend. Lisbeth assured her mother that she would return later that evening. This wasn't her first time crossing the border, but for some reason, her decision to do it did not sit right with her mother at all. Maybe it was her instincts telling her something bad was going to happen. But regardless, she let Lisbeth go. However, when Lisbeth failed to return home that night, her mother knew something was wrong. She filed a missing persons report immediately the next morning. But tragically, the day after filing, Mexican officials discovered Lisbeth's lifeless body abandoned on a field in Matamoros. And the condition of her remains were absolutely horrific. She had been brutally assaulted and all of her teeth were removed from her mouth before she died. And the fatal injury seemed to be from a powerful blow to the head using this large rock that was discovered at the scene. Some say it was robbery, others say it was sexual assault, but no one really knows what happened exactly between Lisbeth and her killer. The good thing is the killer was arrested. Braulio Martinez was caught at his residence in connection with the murder, and after pleading no contest, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison, which many people thought wasn't a long enough sentence. This is just so sad, and due to the violence in this area, Lisbeth's mother is now without a child, and her own 2 kids are left without a mother. But luckily, local businesses stepped up by contributing funds to her children's education. As this kind gesture definitely helped, nothing will bring back their mother, Lisbeth Flores. May she rest in peace.
Tell me when to hear. While you're here, we'll keep you busy. You'll wash for us, you'll clean for us, cook for us, you'll for us. That's your choice in a nutshell.
The woman in that video was one of the victims of serial killers Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. These 2 were 2 of the most depraved murderers to ever haunt America. So from the outside looking in, Leonard Lake was a totally normal guy. He was married, he went to Bible studies, attended church, but back at his remote cabin in California, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng were abducting sometimes entire families, murdering them, and keeping the women hostage for days, weeks at a time. So obviously there's a lot to this story. It's really disturbing. There were over 25 victims attributed to Leonard and Charles, and the 2 of them would literally abduct entire families. They would then kill the men and the children and keep these women hostage in a bunker on the property. Eventually though, a serious mistake by Charles led the police to the compound. And that's when they arrested both of these guys. They started digging up the grounds and they discovered the corpses of those 25 plus victims. And when they searched the home, they also found a library of videotapes. These videotapes graphically show the interactions between Leonard Lake and his victims. There are a lot of tapes, they're all on YouTube, you can go watch them. But they are incredibly disturbing, just watching Leonard talk to the camera about his thoughts and desires, listening to the way he treats and talks to these women that he's abducted, and knowing the amount of carnage that this man and his friend caused is crazy. As a side note, Leonard Lake actually took his own life a couple days after being arrested because he had sewn cyanide pills into his clothing. So he never really was truly brought to justice.
The whole ordeal lasted about a minute and a half. Okay. And when I was finished stabbing him, he took out his last breath, a grunt, and his head was halfway cut off in stabs. All the while, no, actually, after I killed him, I just couldn't stop saying, stinky, dirty, dirty, stinky, stinky. I wasn't selling anything, but...
In an eerie coincidence, on one of his social media accounts, Brian identifies himself as that stinky boy registered under his email ID.
Why would you say that? I don't know. Okay.
But you remember doing it, so.
Yeah. I suppose it was just me speaking out my mind at that moment. It was a pouring out of the mind.
Were you worried about, I mean, this looks like it's pretty close to the road and stuff. Somebody seeing you or catching you?
It was 11 p.m., so not many were driving by. Well, it was behind the pillar. So, like, here's the road. It was here. So people would only see a brief thing here and here.
So were you worried about them seeing you?
I was worried about one of them stopping.
What did you think could happen if somebody...
Well, if they looked, well, it was quite dark under there, so they wouldn't have seen the guy unless they looked. They would have seen me holding a bloody 12-inch knife, wearing gloves, and wearing a mask to conceal my identity, a face mask.
Okay. So you weren't doing it for COVID, you were doing it to hide your face?
Partially. Social distancing. Right. Yeah, but no one stopped. And I'm just like, proves the bystander effect.
Brian mentions the bystander effect here, which is the idea that the more people there are watching a crime, the less likely that anyone will stand up and do anything about it.
I noticed you got a cut on your hand. Is that from...
Oh, that was when I was doing gas, when I filled up. What happened was, because I don't want to be seen in a gas station with a knife poking out of my pocket, I put it in the car on the back seat floor. When I'm done with it, I try and grab it, but my hand slips and grabs the blade, and as I take it up, it slices these two fingers.
Okay.
And then, after that, I stripped his clothes. I cut open his belly to see his guts. They're really pink. Sorry, that was morbid.
One of the exceptional aspects of Brian's confession is the level of detail he provides. Together with his casual commentary and jokes, these details convey to investigators that Brian is being fully truthful about what he did. It's also worth noting that morbid humor has long been one of Brian's trademarks.
The man in this photo is one of the worst sexual offenders in the history of Ohio. This man's name was Brian Peppers. For years, this photograph circulated on the internet attached to his story of sexual abuse, and nobody believed that it was real. But some fact-checking was eventually done, and yes, Brian Peppers was a real man with a real peppered past. So Brian was born with something called Cruzon syndrome. And when Brian was younger, he was bullied incessantly by people in his school. So as Brian grew older over the years, his body quickly began to grow weaker, and eventually his mental health deteriorated to such a point that he had to be checked into a nursing home. But it was in the year 1998 when Brian was arrested and convicted of molesting somebody. According to the report, he actually sexually abused the nurse that was taking care of him in the nursing home. Brian was then removed from the nursing home, he spent 30 days in jail, and he was on probation for 5 years. After this incident, Brian was on the sex offenders registry in Ohio up until his death. When he died, Brian Peppers was only 4 foot 1 inches tall, and he passed away on February 7th, 2012, which, eerily enough, is the day that I'm posting this TikTok, and I didn't even realize it until I read that just now. The true story behind this mugshot is absolutely disturbing. This is 54-year-old Stanton Lee Pierce, and in 2017, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for burning a body. So Stanton had been in and out of prison in the past, but in 2016, he got mixed up in a murder. These were the 3 people that were implicated in this murder scheme. There was 37-year-old Rebecca Bond, pictured over here, who actually shot and killed the 62-year-old victim, Louise Martinez. Then there was 56-year-old Lori Stone Perry and Stanton Pierce, and these 2 were convicted of moving the body. 62-year-old Louise Martinez had been missing for a while, and eventually investigators located his burned prize vehicle out in the middle of nowhere. And when I say out in the middle of nowhere, his burned car was really way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. Obviously, they knew something had happened to Louise, but they didn't know exactly what had happened. Well, Louise's body was eventually found also burned in a local cemetery, and from that point on, investigators knew that they were looking at a hardcore murder. Eventually, through investigation, investigators were able to determine that Stanton Pierce had helped clean up the crime scene and had helped move the body to that cemetery. He had collected shell casings after the victim was shot and killed, he had removed bullets from a wall that had gotten lodged in there, and he had even cleaned up blood from the surrounding area. And to finish the story out, Stanton Pierce was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He's going to be over 90 years old when he's finally released.
Montgomery County 911, where's your emergency?
I just stabbed myself and I killed my 2 children.
You stabbed yourself and killed your 2 children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what's your name?
Brandy Worley.
Brandy what?
Worley.
And where are the children at?
In my daughter's room on the floor.
In your daughter's room on the floor? Okay. And what caused you to do this today?
My husband wanted a divorce and wanted to take my kid. I won't let him have my kid.
Okay, and how old are your children?
7 and 3.
Okay. And where did you stab yourself at?
In the neck.
Okay, are you bleeding?
Yeah, there's blood everywhere.
Okay, and where are you at?
In my living room.
You're in your living room?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and are you armed now with the knife still?
No, it's in my children's room.
Okay, where's your husband at?
Downstairs somewhere.
Okay, what's his condition?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
And what are you feeling right now? I mean, are you tired? Are you where?
Yeah, I took a lot of Benadryl.
You took a lot of Benadryl?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are the worst of the worst videos on the internet explained, and today we're talking about the Pitbull video. The video that I'm about to explain is extremely graphic, and I don't recommend searching for it. This is a cartel execution, and the video begins with the victim lying on his back on the ground, and 2 men are holding his legs open. He's being restrained. And in total, there are 5 cartel members, 1 victim, and also 2 Pitbull dogs. Apparently, this is the victim's punishment for allegedly doing something with a kid or to a kid. The victim is naked, and at the start of the video, the dog has done most of the work. The dog already ripped the man's privates off, and it's just a bloody mess. The dog continues to rip pieces of flesh off where the victim's privates used to be, and the victim is being held down, and he is also being gagged so he can't scream. But sometimes the gag came loose, and at that point you can hear the man scream in absolute pain. The victim was even talking, but I couldn't translate it, but that means he was completely conscious during this, which I can't even imagine the pain. As a man, this might be one of the worst videos out there. Funky Town is bad, Ghost Rider is bad, but as a man, I can't imagine anything more painful than a pit bull ripping your junk off while you're still alive. Not many people mention this video with the other disturbing ones, but it's definitely up there. There's not any information about the victim after the video. I don't know if he died, but it's safe to assume he did. He lost a lot of blood, and if a dog eats your privates, you will most likely get an infection and die from it. All in all, this video is very graphic, very real, and very disturbing. Please do yourself a favor and never go searching for this video, especially if you're a man. This is 2 Girls 1 Cup, one of the most disgusting shock videos on the internet explained. I'm explaining this off memory and other people's comments. There is no way I watch this video again because it's that gross. The video is 1 minute long, and as it starts, you hear a piano track over the video and you see 2 girls making out. But at around 10 seconds in, it gets absolutely sickening. One of the girls gets a glass cup and defecates in it, filling it all the way to the top. A jump cut then occurs and it shows the 2 women licking the feces in the cup like it's ice cream. It cuts again and it shows one of the girls rubbing the feces around her mouth, and the video then cuts again, and it shows the 2 girls making out with feces in their mouth and all over their faces. The next scene, one of the girls sticks her fingers down her throat trying to make herself vomit into the glass as the other girl licks it. The next scene, it shows one of the girls standing up and the other one is on her knees. The one standing up then pukes directly onto the face of the girl on her knees. The final scene shows both girls completely covered in feces as it's even overflowing their mouths. And this is where the video finally concludes. This video is absolutely sickening, and when I tell you not to watch it, don't watch it. I know I say that for all the videos I cover, but this one isn't brutal or gory. It's just plain out disgusting and you really just don't want to see it. You can watch reactions on YouTube of people watching this for the first time. Joe Rogan even has his reaction video up from years ago.
Stewie. Yeah? It's not your fault. What? It's not your fault. I knew. It's not your fault. I knew.